Hi everyone, Nicholas Barfitis here from sunny Cyprus, and welcome to today's tutorial. And as you can see, this tutorial is all about charts in Excel, generating charts and graphs. In other words, representing data in a graphical form. Now, in particular, this tutorial is focused on students which are taking the 0417 ICT IGCSE examination. However, even if you're not a student taking this exam, this is still going to be useful for you. But the only difference is that the techniques that we're going to learn are the techniques which are focused on the syllabus from Cambridge. And this syllabus basically outlines the requirements which students need, or the skills that students need for this examination. Now, you can download the syllabus, which is for the entire course, and this syllabus is for the years 2023, 24, and 25. You only get some minor changes every so often, some additions or some subtractions. Particularly for the graphs, there really aren't that many changes outside of those years. However, you do scroll down to section 16, and I'm just going to show you, I've actually extracted that section. Here it is here. This is what we're going to be looking at today. This is what we're going to be learning today. And you can see here it says candidates should be able to, and it goes all over this material. So in particular, I just want to highlight some things which may be terminology which is not particularly known by students. So being able to create graphs or charts using contiguous data or non-contiguous data, we're going to have a look at that. And we're going to learn how to choose the different chart types or change the chart type. We're going to learn how we can actually add things like labels, how we can put titles, legends, modify the axes titles, and we're going to also then learn how we can add, and this is an important one, a second data series and a second axis. From there, we're going to be able to add values on the different columns or the lines or the pie charts or whatever, the data values. We're going to format those data values to represent the values in a particular form, whether it's currency, percentages, decimal places. And then we're going to adjust things like the maximum and minimum values of the axes. So we can set where the axis begins and where it ends. And then finally, we're going to do things like enhancing the appearance of a graph or chart. Depending on the type of chart, we may change the colors, we may change the fill color, the fill pattern, or we may pull pieces out from a pie chart. So basically, this is everything we're going to cover. As I said, you can download the entire syllabus. There's a link in the description at the bottom of this video. You can download that. But for now, let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to be using this data to be generating a series of different charts for you guys. I'm going to be generating charts in many, many different ways. There's no right or wrong way, but there is a proper way. And it really comes down to a chart which will dynamically change according to the data which is used to generate that chart. Now, I say this, and it's probably common sense to say, well, of course, the chart's going to change. But sometimes students find that a shortcut to generate these charts is not usually the right way, but it's good enough for the examination purposes. So I don't just want to teach you what to do just to get by for the exam. I want to show you the proper way of creating charts. So let's begin by creating our very first chart. So first step is, what is contiguous data? Well, contiguous data is data which is next to each other, and you're going to use a selection of data. For example, if I wanted to create a bar chart for the first quarter for all the regions, then I can simply select this contiguous data here. You can see I simply select all of that data. So let's generate this very quickly. So from here, once I've selected my data, I can go to Insert. I'm going to choose a column chart, and there we go. It's used this data, this contiguous data here, to generate this chart. Now, I'm just going to delete that. If I wanted, for example, only to show a chart which was for January and March, for example, this is not contiguous data. In fact, this data series is here, and this data series is here. So I need two selections. I'm actually using the control button on my keyboard for the multiple selection. So I first make my first selection, hold the control button down now on the keyboard, and then make my next selection. So this is not contiguous data. And I can do this for more than two. So I could also select these two as well. So let's do that. Notice I haven't selected the regions at the top. I can, so I could do this. Select that, hold the control button, select that, and then select these as well. I'm going to be talking a little bit about this category titles at the top in a second. So with this non-contiguous data selected, I can now very easily go to insert, and Excel is really smart. It's going to realize these are the category names and these are data series. I'm just going to create a column chart, and there we go. Okay, so that's creating a chart using non-contiguous data. A really cool feature, we can see right now that this data being represented is actually using January, March, June, and July, the months, as the series. So this is the series for January, blue, orange is for March, gray is for June. We can see that highlighted in the data there as well, and yellow is for July. And the categories are North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. Now, I can, if I want, switch the row column around very easily. And I can do this like this. If I simply click on the chart, I can see at the top, I get the chart design ribbon, and I've got this button, switch row/column. And clicking on that switches the categories and the series. So now the different series are the different regions. And I've only got 4 categories, and the categories now are the months. So depending on what it is you want to display, or what you're asked to display, you can actually flip those rows and columns very, very easily. Okay, so let's now go delete that and create a chart, probably a different way now. So that was using non-contiguous data, but we were using all of these. So let's say I wanted to create a chart which was only for, what shall we say here, January, July, and August, and I only wanted North America, Africa, and Asia. Okay, so one way that you can do this, and this is what many students would normally do. It's not the correct way, but it will get you by. Okay, they would normally copy the entire data, put it somewhere else. They will copy the data essentially just so that they don't lose the original data. You don't have to. And then they will go and delete everything that they don't want. So let's just move this down to here so I can very easily delete those columns and rows. So I'm going to move that there. So essentially they would get rid of, for example, that one, and that one. Again, I'm using the control button for multiple selections. Right click, delete. And then they would say, oh, I don't even know what I said. January, July, and August. So I'm just going to delete all of this. Delete that. And delete that, move these up, and they will just leave the data which they want. Okay, and then you can simply select this and generate your chart. Now, as I said, this is not the ideal way, but it will get you by in the exam. Okay, so you've actually got your chart there represent, and again, you can flip the row and columns around depending on what it is you want to show. This isn't ideal because you've actually chopped up the data and only left what you wanted for this chart, but it will be sufficient for the examination if you get stuck and there's nothing else you can do. You can't think of the right way to do it. So anyway, I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to show you probably the better way, the way which I think is the best way to create the chart, depending on, irrespective of what it is you want to use. Okay, so I'm going to select all of my data. I'm going to select the headings at the top. I'm going to select all of this data, and I'm going to create my chart. Insert, again, create my column chart. And we can see here now, it's actually generated the chart using all of this data. But I didn't want all this data, so what am I going to do? I'm going to right click in the plot area here, and I'm going to say select data. Now, look at this. It's actually very smart. It's identified the axis labels being the months, okay? And it's found all my series, which are going to be all the North America, South America. So if I only wanted, we said North America, I didn't want that. I wanted Africa and Asia only. I'm just removing the ticks of the ones that I don't want. And then I said I only wanted January, so leave January, and July and August. So July and August, and I get rid of everything else. Okay, so I've only ticked the ones that I want and removed the tick of everything else I don't want. Oh, don't want the total either. Okay, now when I click OK, look at that. So my chart's created, and it's only using what I've been asked for. And it's just so much easier to simply right click, select data, and just remove the things you don't want from here rather than chopping that data up. And the beautiful thing about this is if you want to add something, let's say I want to add the total in here now, I can simply go again, right click, plot area, because select data, And because I created this using all of the data, I can just select that and click OK. And now it's added my total as well. It's added it as a category. So if I wanted it as a series, then I'm just going to do switch row and column. And look at that. Now, this is now bringing me to the next part of what I wanted to show you. So I've shown you like a couple of ways that we can actually select data. I'm going to show you one more, okay, how we can actually just add a second series ad hoc when we want. So let's say we've got I'm just going to use March here, and I'm going to generate a chart using only March. I'm not using the titles or anything. I'm going to add in everything afterwards. So again, insert. I'm going to use my column chart. I've got, there you go, a very basic chart here. I don't have my axes titles at the bottom, my labels at the bottom here because I didn't select them. So I'm going to right click on the plot area and I'm going to add to this and edit it from the beginning. Select data. And I can see here that for my axes labels, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because it really didn't know what to use. So I'm going to click on edit and I'm going to select this range of cells here. And I say use the range of cells here for these labels. And look at that, it's done it for me. Perfect. Click OK. The next thing I want to do is to add another series. So let's say I want to add in here July. Or actually, I'm going to add in total. I'm going to click on add for my series. So I'm going to add another series. The series name, well, I'm going to get the title from there, total. And then my series values, whatever it's got in here, we're going to delete. And I'm going to select my values here all the way up to there. Okay, and look at that, it's added it in for me straight away, really easy, no fuss. Click OK. And then OK again. And again, obviously, I can flip these over using switching the row or column. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add some labels to this, but then we also, so what we've actually completed here, we've added a second series. This one here, we've added a second data series. This one here. So we added total and we added that manually. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to look at putting some labels, chart titles, axis labels, and then we're also going to add a second axis. But we're going to see why we're adding the axis. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my chart, anywhere in the chart area. I'm going to get this little plus sign. So let's just bring this over here, make this a bit bigger. And from here, I can see different things that I can add. For example, I can add a chart title. I'm going to click on that, select it. There it is there. Now, I do have other things that I can have, more options. We're going to have a look at some of these in a second, but we're just going to make sure we've got chart title. I'm going to type here, or what was this? This is on, what series is that? Well, let's add the legend first so I know what I'm actually working with. So I'm going to click on the plus sign. I'm going to use the legend. Now, sometimes in the exam paper it says, do not add a legend, so you actually remove it. I'm going to click on legend. That gives me my legend here telling me what these color codes stand. So basically it's a key. And I'm also going to add my legend at the bottom. So I'm going to click on this little arrow here and say bottom. And that's going to add my legend at the bottom. So this is going to be March sales v total sales. Just give it an appropriate title. Then I'm going to close this property area here. And we're going to look at that later on. So again, I'm going to click on my chart, click on the plus sign. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add axis titles. Okay, so I'm going to click on this. This is going to give me my y-axis title and my x-axis title. And I can choose if I only want one by removing the tick. And we're going to see later on how we can add the second one as well. So let's say this is going to be my March sales. Sales. Yep. And this is going to be my region. Okay, good. All right, so that's pretty much everything that I really need to do here. We're going to have a look at formatting charts later on. But the next thing I want to do is to give a second axis here, a vertical axis. And the reason why, because these total values here for total, they're so much higher than the values for March, I really can't see these columns for March because these ones here are really drowning everything out because the values are just so big. So I want to have a second vertical axis here, which is values only for total, and have this left one over here for my March sales. So how do I do this? Well, I need to use a type of chart known as a combo. So I'm going to right click on my plot area. I'm going to say change chart type. And down here, I'm going to use combo. Now look at this. This does this. So I'm able to now, first of all, decide what kind of chart I want for each series. I've only got 2 series here, March and total, but if I had more, I'd be able to choose for each one of these. So March, I'm going to leave it as column, and total is a line. And I like that because it's just going to show me a nice comparison. But again, we can see these are still squashed at the bottom. So what I want for the total, I want a secondary axis for total. And now look, it's put this axis on the right-hand side. I've got my total values as a line chart instead of a column chart. I can make it a column chart by clicking here. Okay, so that's up to you, clustered column, or let's do a horizontal one, for example. I can do that and give it. So you can actually change these around. I'm just going to leave that as a line chart. I like it like that. And simply click OK. And look at that. That's a really beautiful chart. Really easy to follow. The orange line shows the total sales. The columns show the March sales. And again, if I wanted to add to this, I simply right click here, select data, and I can just add another series easily. So why don't I just do that for you quickly? I'm just going to choose, let's say, put October in there, and for the values, delete what's in there. I'm just going to select these values here. I should be round about there, column H, and click OK. Now you can see it's actually made that a line chart. I'm going to click OK, right click, change chart type, and for this one here, I'm just going to make this column. Okay, now that's a clustered column chart. It's got a secondary axis. I'm not going to have a secondary axis. There we go. Okay, so now I've got October is gray, March is blue, and I've got my total as a line chart using this secondary axis. So how do I give this a label? Well, I'm going to go to the plus sign, go to data labels, axis titles, click on this, and now I've got more. I want for my secondary vertical axis. So I'm going to click on that. And now this one here, I can say total sales. And over here, instead of March sales, I'm going to say March, October sales. Okay, there we go. Okay, so other things that we need to be able to do with bar charts and line charts, for example. So before I go to pie chart, I'm just going to show you how we can add things like data values and format those data values and actually modify the colors and the schemes. So let's start first of all with axes. So if you can see this one here starts from 0 and goes to 25,000. The right one goes from 0, goes to 300,000. If you want to modify this, you can. So I'm going to show you how you can do this. I'm going to close the property area here so we can actually open it up and see how we can open it. So a quick way to open that properties area is simply double click on your chart, and that will open this chart area. And then anything you click on, it will show you the properties for that item. So if I select this chart, vertical axis here, I can select this now. So you can see it's selected. And if I now click on this button here, the axis options, I can then modify my axis options. So instead of starting from 0 to 300,000, I can say it's going to go from 0 to 250,000. Okay, click over here, and you can see now that goes all the way up to 250,000. If I click on this one, I can change that as well. So go to my axis options, and I'm going to say that's going to go up to 23,000, just to give me a bit more space. Okay, and click over here, and there we go. Okay, that's actually gone down to minus 2,000. All right, let's go have a look. Let's just click on this one. Go to this and axis option. So you see, I actually put that to my, that was a bit silly. I want that to start from 0. There we go. And click over here. There we go. Okay, so I've actually modified that. All right, so other things that we can do. So we can change these axes, and the other things that we can do, we can add things like, and remember guys, I'm not going to go over absolutely everything because there's just so many different things that you can modify. You really need to get into these properties, have a look. I'm only showing you the basics which are required for the exam. But you can actually put things like the major units, the minor units. So here this is going up in 5,000s. We can see in 50,000, 100,000. So it's going up by 50,000 increments, and the minor is 10,000. So I could make, for example, my major 25,000 instead of 50, and that just gives me some more increments there. Okay. Again, you can mess around with this as much as you like. So if I click on there and go to my axes, I can do that. Now, the other things that we can do, if I click on a series, so if I click on this series here, the March series, again, over here, I now see my series options. This is my primary axis, and I can click on my chart here. I can modify things like the colors. So instead of using that, I can use, let's say, a pattern field. I think this is a popular one. So I'm just going to use this pattern here. I'm going to make it blue. There we go. And the other thing I can also do is if I add up here on the plus sign, so if I click on my chart, so if I click on the series, it's only going to apply what I'm going to do only on this series. If I click on the chart, however, and then go to add, I can add data labels. You can see it's actually putting the data labels on top of each of these different series. So I'm going to go say add data labels, and I'm going to choose, I can put more options. So let's just go add the data labels first, and then I'm going to go to more options. That's going to show me these options here. Now, the ones, everything that is selected will be modified. And I can actually see the ones that are selected right now are these March ones. So if I click on March, you can see all these March ones here. I can now go to my label options, and I can format this. So instead of being like this one here, you can see it's got 3 decimal places. I can change the category from that to number. And that will allow me to change the decimal places to 2. I'm going to put it to 0. Okay, so that's to 0 decimal places. I'm now going to click on this one here, which is my October series. So one of these numbers here. I'm going to do the same thing. Click on my chart options here. Number, I'm going to change that again to number and make that to 0. Okay. And then I'm going to click on the ones which are to do with this one here, the orange ones, the total sales. So this one, I'm actually going to go again over here. Instead of number, I'm going to choose currency. So you could choose currency. You can change the symbol and put whatever symbol you're asked to. They're not too fussy with symbols anymore. They used to be quite a bit fussy and ask you to use particular symbols. But right now, whatever region you're in, I think you're pretty much okay. So I'm just going to use Euro for that one there. Now, this is looking a bit cluttered, so I'm just going to get rid of my October one. I'm going to right click on the plot area, select data, and I'm just going to remove October. Look at this. Woohoo! Isn't that nice? Really easy, really quick. I can see that my values for totals are displayed in Euro. My values for March sales are displayed in numeric 0 decimal places. I can also modify the decimal places for this one as well. So I could go to where it's got number here, Euro, decimal places, I can put that to 0, for example. Okay, and these are things that you're going to have to be able to do. Okay, so the next part I want to show you is creating a pie chart. It's much more, it's much easier. Before I actually do that, if you click on anything, for example, this line, you've got things like the color that you can change. You can make it a solid line. You can choose a different color, make it red, for example. And these are things you may be asked to do to enhance or to highlight different areas of your chart. So again, the trick is, if you don't have this properties area, double click anywhere in your chart, and then anything you click on, you've got these things here. This is like the positioning, the shadow, edges, and this and the other. This is the colorings, and this is everything to do with either your axes or the values, depending on what you click on. So if I click on the numbers, I now click there, and this is to do with the values. Oh, and I can show different things. So here I've got the value, and it's got leader lines. I can put the category name. I can add the series name. You can put the legend key as well. Yeah, it gets a bit messy. So too many things does make it messy. Only add what they ask you to add. And also where you're going to place this information. So this is to the right. I could put it above. I could put it to the right. I could put it to the left, depending on where you're asked to put these values. If you're not, just position them somewhere where they look as neat as possible. All right, so let's now go do a pie chart. So I'm going to close that property area here. I'm going to move this out the way, and I'm going to create another chart. So with pie charts, you only have one data series. I mean, that's the whole point. You're not going to have pieces from different pizzas, let's say. So you're only going to be using a pie chart on one particular series. So if I was to, what should I say? If I was to do, let's say, this series here for January, I can very easily go to Insert and choose my pie chart. And there we go. Now, from here, from the pie chart, different things that you would want to be able to do, for example, is what is this representation of all these colors? You'd want the legend. I didn't select this area here. I could have done this easier simply by doing this. And then go to Insert, Pie Chart, and there you go. It's put my key there, my legend, and now I know what everything is, how it's represented. But if I didn't do that, again, just like before, create my pie chart. I can right click on here, select data, and I can choose my axis label. So I'm going to go to Edit and select those for my axis labels. Very easy. Click OK and OK. Now, the plus sign, this will allow me to add a chart title. I can add data labels. So these are labels for each one of these. But you can also choose which kind of label, where you want them, and more options. So let's have a look at these. So let's say I'm going to have these on the outside end. It puts them on the outside. If I then go to more options, okay, so from here, I can, if I want, show, for example, instead of values, I can put percentages and get rid of the values. Depending on what they ask you to put, if they want the category name, you could also put the category name, you put the series name, so on and so forth. Okay, so it really depends on what they want. So I'm going to put, let's say, value and percentage. It's up to you. I think that's a bit too much. I'm just going to put percentage there. Okay, and again, you can format with these things selected. So if I click away, select these, I can then go to this icon here and I can choose what I'm going to show. For example, I can make that is a percentage. Okay, there it is. And it's got 2 decimal places. If I want 1 decimal place, I can do that easily. Okay, so you can format the numbers the way that they're displayed here. The other thing about the positioning of these labels, the really good thing about it, if you've got them on the outside instead of inside, or even if you are on the inside, outside will be better. But if you move one of these away, it will then automatically put a little line which points to the segment is actually pointing to. Okay. Another feature that they will ask you normally to do when it comes to pie chart is probably remove the legend. So I'm going to remove the legend and maybe ask you to put the label as part of the percentage there. So again, I'm going to go to my plus sign, data labels, more options, and click on here. I'm going to go to my label options and say I'm also going to put the category name. Okay, so and maybe the series name. Okay, so again, it really depends on what they ask you to do. And again, if I move this out the way, just move that down a bit over here, it should put that line for me. Okay, so with pie charts, one thing they do ask you to do very oftenly is this. They ask you to move away the biggest piece. So we highlight that piece. So here's a classic problem. If I don't have my chart selected, I'm gonna make my chart nice and big so it's a bit easier. If my chart is not selected like this, and I simply now go and click and drag this gray area, look what happens. Click and drag, it moves all of these pieces outwards. Because as soon as I click, I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo. It's got all of these slices selected. So what you want to do if you want to move one slice, so again, here I am from the beginning, I'm going to click on my chart area. This has selected all the pieces. Then click on the piece I want to move only. Click on that one. You can see it's only selected this one. If I click on the green, you can see it's only selected the green. And then, so I'm going to take the gray and then click now and drag, and that will move only that one piece away. Okay, that's everything. There really isn't anything else. Again, if you want to format things like colors, just click on the series from here. or just double click on it, it will show you the properties on this area here. And you've got different things like angle of slice. You don't need all that, but you can go to the color, the bucket option here, and you can use different things. For example, a pattern fill is one of the common ones. Again, I'm going to use a dotted pattern, make it green. Okay, or and then choose this one. Oh, I've moved that, Control Z. Select the orange one. I'm going to do, let's say, a solid color and just make that, I don't know, let's say a yellow. Okay, so all of these things are editable. The plus sign, very useful. Make sure you read the instructions of the question and only add what they ask you to add, or remove what they ask you to remove. Okay, I hope you found this useful. And I hope it helps you in your exams if you're doing your exams. If you're not doing the exams, you just wanted to learn about charts and how you can modify them and create some nice looking charts, then I hope you found this useful. And if you did, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I'll see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.